Vintage at Goodwood is 5 decades of British cool. It's all about the bringing together of music, fashion, design, dance, art and humour. It's a celebration of all that's best about British popular culture from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s.
It's going to celebrate not just the past and where we've come from, but it's going to look at the future and where we're going to. And there hasn't been an exhibition of this nature anywhere in the world, and it's one of those obvious ideas that as time has come. British creativity is revered around the world. You know, we have London Fashion Week, we have the London Design Festival, which are now classed as world leaders in terms of style events, and yet they're closed to the public. They're only for the insiders. And it's about time that there was a festival that celebrated British creativity and was available to everybody. The last one took place over half a century ago, the Festival of Britain, which took place on the South Bank of London. And still amongst Britain's creative community, it's something that's looked back on and talked about. And this will be, Vintage will be a new Festival of Britain that will take place every year and celebrate everything that did and add music to it.
Well, originally it really came from the revival. We had such a great experience, the fashion, the vintage fashion element of revival, the way people really engaged with that, and they became the show. And we felt very strongly there was a whole area here that was really being kind of untapped, and people were not really getting what they really wanted, which was to really revel in all that's best. It was taking place in this country over the last 50 years.
And this is really a festival and an event of our lives, really. I mean, I grew up just obsessed with music, fashion, youth culture, going to clubs, seeing bands like thousands and tens of thousands of people like me. That's all me and my mates talk about, and there hasn't been an event, a festival like this that really satisfies all of that. Ever since I were a lad, people have celebrated in clubs all around the country. They've celebrated music and fashion and culture, and it's all gone together. And yet I think what we've achieved in Britain over these last few years in terms of festivals is a great festival scene, but it's focused totally on music. And what Vintage will do is it will bring not just the music, but it'll bring the fashion, it'll bring the film, it'll bring the culture and the art, and the food, and we can celebrate it all together as one, as it always should be. It can't be separated, it should never have been separated, and Vintage brings it all back together.
Well, we feel it's a really important time. People are changing the way they go on holiday, people are holidaying at home much more, people are really interested in, I think, a different type of lifestyle. They're much more thrifty, it's make and mend, it's learning things which have been forgotten, it's more of a family orientated lifestyle, and I think that what we're trying to do with Vintage and what Vintage represents will perfectly fit with that. So it's about timing, and it's about what people want right now.
This is an ambitious project, and yes, we've got the ideas, and yes, we've got the experience throughout the British cultural spectrum, but what really will make this work is Goodwood. I've lived near Goodwood for quite a long time. I've visited the revival, I've visited the Festival of Speed, and the organisation and the attention to detail and the fact that people leave with a smile on their face is something that will set us in very good stead. And at Vintage, we're celebrating fashion, we're celebrating music, we're celebrating glamour. If we're going to stay glamorous, then it's got to be in a glamorous location, and Goodwood is all of that.
We feel our partnership with Wayne is a brilliant one. We're thrilled to be working together, and I feel the two of us are going to make a great team. And we're going to create the biggest vintage fashion event in the world, and it's the Hemingways who are going to drive that.
We've put together a team of curators who will look at every aspect and every bit of detail of Vintage and give it the authenticity and the attention to detail and the experience. I think it's one thing. This event is large, it's all encompassing, and we can't hope to know everything there is to know about the history of cinema, the history of rock and roll, the history of soul music, the history of glam rock and punk, and so for every single angle we've brought in the people, the experts in that field. And if you look at other bits of the Vintage website, you'll see the credentials of the team that we've put together. We could not have assembled a better team to deliver Vintage.
There are pockets of this sort of thing going on all over the world, but they're very small communities, and they play their own music, they live their own lifestyles, they wear the clothes, drive the cars, do all that stuff. So we want all those people who really live the life to be here.
We want those people, plus we want people who are not necessarily part of the clique and part of the scenes, to come to vintage and just share that knowledge, share that enthusiasm, and hopefully go away, one, with a smile on their face, two, having had a damn good dance, and three, knowing something else about British culture, and going away with enthusiasm to learn more and come back next year for more.
Absolutely. And we've really found this with the revival. Everyone feels they're in it, and everyone feels they're part of it and actually contributing something. So it's going to be great people watching, and it's going to be a great way to feel that you are caught up in all these different genres, and you'll be part of the show. We've got great plans for the way we handle the camping, to give people special areas where they can camp, special levels of camping, and being able to select your campsite. So it's going to be all about coming here on holiday with the family, spending some days at Vintage at Goodwood, and then maybe staying in the area, enjoying the seaside and all the other things that go on in West Sussex. So we're very, very excited about the site. We feel something as important as Vintage at Goodwood and all the things we're trying to celebrate, the Englishness that we're trying to celebrate, just demands it's on a great piece of English countryside, and it certainly is.
You'll come on that fantastic train journey through Arundel and down through the West Sussex countryside. You'll arrive at Chichester Station, get picked up by a vintage bus, a beautiful old vintage bus, which will drive you up the hill to Goodwood through the amazing estate, and then you'll come out the bus, walk through these lovely woods where people will be camping, and where there'll even be kind of mini discos going on in the woods, and films going on in the woods, and then you'll arrive at the end of the woods, and you'll see one of the most beautiful views that there is in Britain. You see this view that kind of stretches right across the downs, right down to the sea. And then you'll see what we've done. We've actually built an amazing mini city on the downs with an attention to detail. There'll be streets with shops in them, streets that you can walk down and where you can get your hair and makeup done, where you can buy vintage clothes, where you can see catwalk shows, where you can sit in beautifully recreated cafes from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s and the 80s. And then you look around and see that there's a whole series of arenas and stages, and from a 1940s torch club with a 30-piece orchestra playing in it, with like a supper club with burlesque going on and torch singing, to a recreation of a 1950s rock and roll venue called Let It Rock. And whilst it's set up in period like a 1950s club, this is where we celebrate rock and roll. And this is not a nostalgia fest. What we'll do, and the Let It Rock, the 50s venue, is a case in point. It will look like a 50s club, but it will celebrate the whole lineage of rock and roll. So it may start off at Eddie Cochran or Bill Haley, but we're not afraid to celebrate the Damned, the Cramps, and modern day bands that are in the spirit of rock and roll.
The concept of inspired by is going to be one of the most exciting things going on at Vintage. The idea is to bring together music and fashion and show how current bands and current fashion designers have been inspired by the past.
What band today hasn't been inspired by the past, and to be able to explore those links adds an educational angle, but also adds a depth to vintage that many other festivals don't have. And
Vintage Goodwood obviously is taking place at Goodwood on this fabulous site overlooking the South Downs and the sea. It'll be taking place on the 13th, 14th, 15th of August. In fact, actually, it'll even start to some extent on the 12th, because we have a horse race meeting here at Goodwood on that evening. So it'll be a fabulous way to start. We'll be bringing vintage to the races. But Goodwood's perhaps unique in that we bring together all these different sports: horse racing, motor racing, golf, flying, shooting and cricket. And we'll be having all sorts of exciting things going on during the Vintage weekend around those sports. So we're well experienced in delivering this kind of experience.
And we can, between us, offer the security of success in business, which I think is important, and it gives the public some confidence that we're going to deliver this and deliver it well.